My name's Kevin Moore. I'm not with Liberty Mutual. I'm with Roding Insurance. We're the broker that's on the account. We bring you Liberty Mutual. You guys have met Ryan. Ryan's phenomenal. He's one of the best guys. They're loss control, risk control guys they have. I do loss control as well. Like next week, I'll be down here doing some training for the maintenance and custodial staff. Since Ryan's done this a time or two and developed a rapport with you guys, I like him coming down here. He's changing it up. He makes it fun. You know what you get when he shows up. I got one question. What is the most stressful career? If you give me three,
Sector.
outside of bus driving, what's the first one?
Police.
What was that?
Sector. They say it does that.
Stressful? That's being a parent.
All right, I'll give me a career that somebody where you're
Air traffic control.
air traffic control. Give me another one.
Police officer.
Police officer. Yep. Give me one more.
Nurse.
A nurse.
Okay, let me tell you this. I'm a son of an air traffic controller. All right. My father was an air traffic controller for 33 years. Joined the Air Force. They said intelligence or air traffic controlling. Well, they had just created air traffic controlling, so he went that route. He did it 4 years in the Air Force. FAA for the rest of his career up in Lexington. Moved around a little and settled in Lexington, and that's where I was born. But my point is 33 years. That's a stressful job, is it not? Well, they force you to retire because it's so stressful. So my dad retired. Bought a hobby farm in Fayette County. Grew blackberries, Christmas trees, tomatoes, any way to make a little money. Bored out of his mind for about a year and a half. So what he did, he said, well, I got to find something else to do. So he drove over to Bourbon County, applied for a bus driving position. And I'm like, is that what you really want to do? He said, you know what? He's like, you know what? I can minister to these little kids. That's what I want to do. He drove a school bus for 20 more years. All right, loved it. Well, he drove a preschool, so it was a full-time job. So he had a monitor. All he had to do was drive the kids to and from. Well, I remember about a year or two into it, I said, how's that going for you? You like it? I said, is it less stressful? He said, no. He said, it's more stressful. And I'm like, no, are you kidding? Air traffic controlling, that's the most stressful job in the world. So they say, and he said, no, he said, I'm telling you the truth. He said, when I was working air traffic controlling, all I had to do was tell people, go this way, turn right, lower your altitude, raise your altitude, lower your speed. I just told them what to do, is what he said. He said, I just had to make sure everybody just didn't bump into each other. He said, but I'm driving a bus now with 30, 40 kids on it, and I have to get them there safely. And he says, I'm driving as safe as possible, but not everybody else is. And then I've got the weather to contend with, and I've got all these other things to contend with. He said he was actually more stressful driving a school bus. So I tell you that because when he told me that, it was shocking to me too. So I know what you guys are going through. I'm going to pass this over to Ryan. I kind of wanted to share that. And you guys, about a month ago, you were singing that song. What is it? Alice Cooper's song, School's Out for Summer, right? Now you're going, oh, gee, we're back, right? All right, guys, I'm going to pass it off.
All right, guys. Thank you, Kevin. I paid him $100 to say that. And then somebody asked about the emu. I did not bring the emu, but I am the guy that dresses up the costume. I'm just kidding. As Kevin mentioned, we get the opportunity to do this for a lot of the school districts in the state. Liberty Mutual insures basically 90% of the state of Kentucky. So we're in school districts quite a bit, and I will tell you guys, what you do day in, day out, I highly commend you for it, because not only with just the amount of stress on you guys, also you got to think about it. You're really training and instilling and mentoring the future of this country as well with these kids as they grow up. So I commend you for what you do. Your job is amazing. And what I want to do today is a lot of this presentation, even though I've been with you for a couple years, I changed it up a little bit where a lot of the videos you may see probably are some of our insured, some of them are not, some of them you may recognize. But I also wanted to throw out there to you some stats for the state of Kentucky related to bus drivers. But what I want you to gather here is takeaways. A lot of this, yeah, it fits your role for a bus driver, but it also fits that role outside with your own personal vehicles. How many of you guys have teenagers that are driving age in the room? So That's a scary thought. So what I want to do is some of this stuff, I hope you take some of it back to your young kids and share that with them as well. Because from an insurance perspective, you start to see that young 15 to 24-year-old range of young drivers. That's what's driving a lot of the stats. That's what's driving a lot of the fatality metrics. It's driving a lot of your own personal insurance. You've probably seen your rates go up. There's a reason for that. So we'll talk a little bit about that. How many of you all have in here this is your first year of bus driving? Okay, look like, yeah, 3 or 4 or 5. I know Todd said he had about 18 retirements this year, based on what you said. So about 15% of your bus drivers you lost. How many of you got more than 20 years driving? Okay, what about 25? Anybody over 30? Okay. The only hand up in the room, how many years?
I'm getting ready to start 40 years.
40 years, wow. Congratulations. Now, I will say that there's a gentleman in Taylor County that's been driving for 60 years.
I ain't driving
I did the training for him last year, and he got an award at the Kentucky Stat Conference. He's been driving for 6 years now. He started bus driving, he was about 10. But anyway, how many of you, from a bus driving standpoint, how many of you guys were the model citizens for your bus drivers? Anybody that was not the golden child from bus driving standpoint, or for your bus driving? You was a good kid? I know Mr. Cox is probably the bad kid, but I've embedded my photo there. I was the bus driver's golden child. Truly I was. But in your 40 years driving, man, what have you seen change in your role in 40 years?
Oh, wow. Well, used to, in 79, if we couldn't control a child, we could actually put them off the bus. But I didn't do that.
I did.
But
We know.
I like to deal, when I talk to a student, and I've had some bad ones, I will talk to them, not above them and not below them. You get more done. I am very strict. I don't let no kids move on my bus till I stop. And you can't scream at a child. If you start screaming at a child, you've lost it, you all.
Say that again.
You cannot scream at a child, because you start screaming at them, they ain't going to listen to you, they're going to block you out, or they're going to get real mad. But that's right. And you can take the worst kids. Okay, I'll put it this way. 1 year, I hauled a 16-year-old boy from Whitley County that had raped a 12-year-old girl. They kicked him out. Laurel County took him in. 16-year-old boy accidentally shot his best friend out Corbin. Laurel County took him in. I was doing the express run. Guess who got those 2 boys? Then I got another boy that whipped a teacher at Lily. So he wasn't allowed to go back on Lily ground, so he had to walk off and meet me down on the highway. I never had no trouble with them.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that advice. That's I guess your experience in that. So I definitely commend you guys. Again, it's a perfect example of what you guys deal with on a day-to-day basis. Talk to you a little bit about agenda. We're going to talk about some stats, talk about some lessons from losses. We're going to talk a little bit about some best practices. And the biggest thing you can take away is to teach, educate, communicate, not only your fellow drivers, but also to your loved ones living at home. And I always ask the question, what's your most important stop in a day? Every one of them. Absolutely. But you know, when you think about that, you compound that, you go to your home, you've got spouses, you've got grandkids, you've got kids that's depending on you. That's also one of your most important stops. When you get home, you leave for the work day and you come home safe at work once you get done with driving the bus. Absolutely. How many of you all, don't raise your hands because he's already had 18 retirements, are looking at retiring in the next couple of years? A few of them? All right, Todd, you didn't see the 5 or 6 hands up. So, well, this is what you have to look forward to, and what I'll title this as is when Todd calls you to see if you can sub for him, just don't answer the phone.
Yeah, don't listen to that.
That's what you have to look forward to in retirement. Mr. Cox is calling you to see if you can sell it for him. So I always like to put, the next couple of slides will be some slides like what were people thinking. Kevin does a good job with some of his presentations with he calls it Cletus Be Dangerous, or I'm going to be dangerous today. So some of these I'll share with you. A shot of a lifetime. Maybe hard to see. We got a Cobra coiled up here, and that's going to be their fall protection. We'll make sure that this camera guy doesn't fall. What do we think about here? What's wrong with this photo? You got the Toyota Prius electrical vehicle with about a 15-gallon flammable gas can in the back. So if somebody was to hit that car and rear-end it with metal around it, what do you think would happen? We might have a hot date on that one.
But they got caution on it.
Oh yeah, it's got all the signage and everything it needs, but the root cause of that would be why you have a gas can in the back of the car. Now, when you see Kevin or I from a safety professional come in and say, hey, we're going to train you, we're going to teach you about safety, and the first thing you see me do is get in my company car when I leave here, and I'm on a cell phone and I'm not wearing a seatbelt, what have I lost? I've lost my credibility. Texas Department of Public Safety, driving, one cell phone up here and texting while driving on the other. So I can't make this stuff up. And then I actually had a girl, a good friend that I graduated with, that had a very similar accident where she went through a sign and ended up in a restaurant in my hometown. So that's a perfect example of we're hiring crash test dummies. And then lastly, this next photo is a photo I got from Mr. Cox, the president gun expert. So I'll ask you, and y'all, that was you. I'll ask you guys in the amazing room, with experience, I kind of already asked the lady in the back, what do you guys, what's been a wow moment for you guys from just driving buses that you've seen that's kind of shocking? Anything come to mind?
Running our stop sign.
Running stop signs, okay. I've got some videos later that may expound on some of that.
Or having to stop on a road that should not be stopping on with that
Okay, yep,
nobody else is stopping.
absolutely. This next photo probably takes the cake for me. Definitely the state of Kentucky, no helmet law, winter chicken dinner, winning and texting, no gear on, no helmet, no protective gear, no hands on the bike, and he's texting while driving. He's good. I give you credit. It's talented. Absolutely talented. Now this next video, most people think it's real, but I'll tell you it's a fake video, but it gets people's attention. Blind man driver.
We got some drivers like that.
He goes down there every day. Every day.
That's the blind man, he saw it too.
Now look at the lady's look. She's like, what in the world? That's a guy that does a lot of spoofs over in Europe, but it does get people's attention. That one does. So you may ask me, Ryan, why you're a safety professional? I've got 15 years of doing this job. What's most important to you? And that's why I kind of want to make it personal. You can see that's what makes it important to me. That's my wife, my beautiful wife. If you've ever seen me in a full body cast, that's the reason why my wife's a 6-degree black belt.
Wow.
In 2 different disciplines, so she can kill me. So if I come in with a full body cast on, I need marriage counseling. And then that's my daughter. She will be 4. Her name is Rory. So that's why safety is important to me. Yes, I live in great safety, but even though I know all the stats and stuff, are there times that I may reach for that cell phone if I'm getting a phone call from my boss or an email or what email company? You got to keep that in mind every day. So that's what's important to me. I want to talk a bit about, put some stats up here from total fatalities. And you can kind of see a lot of these stats are lagging stats where we don't really have the last 2 years. Usually that's because the Department of Labor Statistics is behind the times a little bit. But what do you see in this chart in the last 4 or 5 years? Do we see it get better or we getting worse? It's absolutely getting worse. And I may ask you why the recent increases. A lot of that has to do with that young drivers. And the reason I say that, I'm 39. I'll be 39 September. When I was driving, not every kid in my high school had cars. Nowadays, in my church, I serve my church a lot, and I actually teach the college and youth. And if there's 5 kids in the family, how many vehicles you going to see in the driveway? It looks like a used car lot. We're driving more miles, and you get that added combination of those young kids on the road. Naturally, with inexperienced drivers, you're going to see those stats fill up. Now I want to show you kind of a snapshot from the region of the United States. You'll see in the red, it says plus 57, plus 4%. What that's showing you is showing you the percentage increase. For instance, down in this area here, 354 additional fatalities, and it year-over-year change in 6%. Now, I highlighted this bucket down here. Why do you think that area of the United States is driving a lot of the increases? Any thoughts?
It's your vacation area.
Absolutely. Think about major destination cities. Houston, Dallas, Orlando, Atlanta. So, over here in California as well. So naturally, where the volume is being driven to, we typically should see the increase in fatalities as well. Now, here's the fatalities when you break them down by loss types. And you see the arrows up there for hit other and rear, intersection, pedestrian or bicyclist, and then also lane change or side swap. I put those arrows up there because honestly, as a driver, these are the ones that you have the most effect on changing behaviors. And we'll talk a little bit about it in more detail. But you see the number of crashes out of that metric, and then of course the percent incurred is the number total of dollars incurred with those losses as well. None of that should really be surprising. As we go through the presentation, I'll hit on a lot of those topics. So when you think about a bus driver and just driving in general in public, really that deck is stacked against you from a driving perspective. You see 103 fatalities a day on average in the United States. That's 1 every 13 minutes. If you think about it in this room, every 13 minutes there's somebody dying as a relation to a crash. You see the number of people injured today. The last data, that was 2018 data of the number of fatalities in the United States related to actual driving vehicles, almost 38,000. The leading death cause for ages 15 to 29. You see roughly 2 out of 8 drivers will have a collision this year, and it's the #1 occupational cause of fatalities in the United States. Now we look at national statistics for bus drivers. You see roughly 450,000 school buses on the road in the United States on a daily basis, covering 4.3 billion miles. 23.5 million kids transported, and you see an average of 20 fatalities a year. Now that will ebb and flow. Some years it would be, like the last couple of years, we actually, when you think about national United States, it's been a little bit lower than that. But some years we've had more. Now when you say, Ron, well, 450 school buses, 4.3 billion miles, 20 is not that bad. But what's behind those 20? It's a child. It's somebody that's not coming back home. It's just not a social security number. It's a real living, breathing person. So let's talk about Kentucky, and this is lagging data for bus facts and statistics for 2017. Really, year over year, compared to 2016, actually a decrease in accidents in bus driver from a bus driver standpoint. 273 fewer incidents than the previous year. You see the number of school buses on the road, the number of bus drivers, the number of bus routes. In the state of Kentucky, you're driving in a given year roughly 110 million miles. And that basically translates to 610,000 miles a day driven in the state of Kentucky for all 120 counties. That's a lot of miles. Laurel County, you may ask, where do we rank in the state? You have the 25th highest bus mileage rate in the state of Kentucky. Last year, you drove roughly a little bit over 1 million miles. Does this surprise anybody? 55% of all those accidents occurred in those 5 months. Is that shocking to any of you all in here, or is it pretty? Does it hold true, basically? Now, somebody that doesn't drive a school bus, you're like, what in the world is going on in August and September? What's going on in January, February, March? Well, what's going on in August and September? School's coming back. You may have new drivers. The general public is trying to get used to you guys. Then what happens in January, February, March? Weather. And you guys here, being somewhat close to the eastern Kentucky mountains, you probably get a little bit more weather than I would when I'm domiciled out in Hardin County, Elizabethtown. So that ebbs and flows in the state of Kentucky as well. Interesting fact that I would have thought would have been different, 88% of these crashes, dry road conditions. Weather was really not a factor. That was kind of shocking. 20% of the incidents had drivers less than 1 year of experience, which is not all that shocking as well. But then when you look at this bucket, over 10 years, 30% of the drivers. Now somebody will say, what's going on with older drivers? Well, I asked you guys in the room, majority of you in this room had over 10 years of experience. So you just kind of fit that law of large numbers.
It's complacency.
And it could be complacency as well. Absolutely, great point. When we look at this basic triangle, a lot of companies I work with outside of school districts, a lot of times they want to focus on this serious accident, this fatality. And for you guys, let's say that you strike a pedestrian. You run over a child or somebody walking out and you end up running over. But what you look back down at is, let's go back down here in this lower bucket of these fifth events whereby, hey, we may have been unsafe, we may have gotten away with it, but let's look at just backing. Let's say that we had to back the bus up. Let's say we had 50 different events in here. Could one of those backing events lead to a pedestrian being run over, backed over? Absolutely, yes. So a lot of times companies get focused on, hey, let's only look at this SIF, this serious injury or fatality, but they forget to look at the near misses and what's kind of lower hanging fruit on a tree that will give you trend lines. Now this slide here is a little bit, it's actually liberty mutual data. We've actually looked at all the serious school transportation losses from 2015 to 2017. And all these losses were over $100,000 incurred. So every one of them was $100,000 or more. Some of them were multi-million-dollar losses. And when you break them down by actual loss types, or accident types, we have failure to yield the right-of-way. I highlighted in red the ones that's most important. Pedestrian bicycle strikes, rollovers, failure to maintain clear distance, so following distance. Any of those surprise you guys as far as just the sheer data? Not really when you look at it. I mean, it's kind of day in and day out what you guys do. Now, the interesting piece here is this slice of the puzzle, the failure to yield, which we'll get into in just a second, is actually a little higher than what I thought, but it's skewed because the data, usually when you have a failure to yield claim, it's a multi-million-dollar loss. Let's talk a little bit about hail, fire, and flood. Now, these are actual photos of some of our insureds and at a bus garage. And if I had to ask you what the root cause of that fire was, what would you think would be the root cause? I'm sorry? Yes, electrical. You know what the electrical was? Two cases. They had one bus that had a battery terminal connection problem that actually sparked. They had another bus right beside it that somebody had basically rigged up a speaker system and hardwired it into the bus. Called the bus on fire. And naturally, when we look at buses like this, you have a bus garage that's got 10 or 15 buses around it, you lose every single one of those. So that's why we really look at segregation and separation of losses. But that's the big kicker in this, with speakers and wired radios and a loose battery terminal connection.
Was the speaker guy written up on soon?
That gets me right back into why pre-trip inspections are so important. And for the mechanics and for Todd to go around and say, wait a minute, why do we retrofit the bus here? What's going on with these homemade speakers that you brought in to have on the bus? Failure to yield. This is actually one of our insureds in the state of Kentucky. And when you look at this crash, what happened was the bus driver, I think he had like 55 students on it, was at a red light and was actually going to turn left. Well, ultimately the bus driver's light was red. Turned on the red light. This car here, it's kind of a double whammy for the district. What do you think showed up in this car here? 4 students from the local high school. So if that come to Mr. Cox's desk, not only did you have this accident, but you also had an accident here in the car with 4 students. Now, ultimately, everybody was okay. It was kind of minor, but that claim there was roughly about a $2 million claim. So left turns in front of oncoming traffic are very, very challenging, especially if you're turning on red. And in this case, I remember this case, they actually had live video from a traffic feed that actually showed the red light had been red for about 6 seconds. Let's look at occupant fatalities. And I'll get into some of the personal piece here why seatbelts are important. The bar shows you the number of fatalities. The orange bar, maybe hard to see, shows you in those instances what we know for a fact were percent unbuckled passengers, i.e. was not wearing a seatbelt. So out of that 15,000 or 10,000 there, 48% of them we know did not have a seatbelt. I know people in here may have a fear of seatbelts and say, you know what if I get in a pond or I'm in a creek or a car catches on fire? Working for an insurance company, I can tell you, your likelihood of surviving a crash is astronomically higher. Don't take that chance. Oh, passenger or driver. Absolutely, passenger or driver. So let's look at the no seatbelt, no worries drive. This is actually the state of Indiana.
And luckily, the driver was alone on the bus when he crashed into a Caldwell home. That's scary to see. I didn't know
Yes,
that
that's
was
scary. Could you imagine a kid there? There's always that.
Bill Redmond was so stunned by what he saw, he wanted his employees to watch.
See how much the seat bounces and then it, you know, what boom, pop up.
Redmond and his employees believe the type of seat in the bus caused the driver to fall so far. From watching the video, they all believe it's an air ride seat.
The more you wear it, the more air it will take.
It makes for a more comfortable ride, but when you're not buckled in, Redmond says it could thrust a driver out of their seat.
If you put it there, and you hit a hard bump, you can see how that can work.
Redmond says he's never had a complaint of his drivers not wearing their seatbelts, but he urges all bus drivers to watch what happens.
I hope and I believe that all my bus drivers do wear their seatbelts. I would love for them to see that so they can see, you know, this could happen to you.
And that's the piece I want to show. This next video is kind of graphic, but for all those that you can see real life examples of what takes place, especially young kids that with the virtual reality world they live in, the video games they live in, what do they got to do if somebody dies? Just hit play and it comes back on. Call this one the ride of your lifetime. This is actually not the United States, it's in Russia. But you'll see the fact of what happens. It's actually 3.
Oh my God.
So for all of those young kids that don't believe it happened to them, and even the complacency that we talk about it ourselves, that, hey, I'm just running to the grocery store, I'm running to the bank a mile down the road. Typically, when we look at insurance statistics, most of the time your wrecks, your crashes happen within a mile of your home. Let's talk about probably one of the most important pieces that I have witnessed from bus drivers and just in general driving around cars, and that's failure to maintain following distance. And what we get out of following distance is those get out of the rear, those rear-end collisions. And you know, when we look at that, it's maintaining the adequate following space. If we went out here and looked and observed people running up and down I-75 at exit 40, 41 out here, what would we see? We see a lot of them right on the back bumper of everybody? Absolutely. You guys thinking about your buses? The size of your bus takes a little bit longer for you guys to stop. You got the perception time, the braking time, the reaction time, all that factored in. On a bus, on a normal size bus, that's about 3 seconds for everything to register. Your brain, your foot, and then the actual vehicle with a weight to stop as well. Biggest thing to keep in mind is maintain that 4 to 6 seconds of following distance. Now, how many of you guys know the time interval rule? Hopefully everybody, we learned that when we took a driver's test. How do we do that time interval rule? Anybody want to share with me how they do it? Absolutely. And that rule of thumb is good if you're going 20 mile an hour or if you're going 75 mile an hour. So keep that in the back of your mind as well.
Seriously, Bert, 20 others came here after school.
We got a trash and unit for the bus.
Garbage truck. This happened this morning in Dearborn County near the Ohio border. Police say 18 students. The bus driver and the driver of the garbage truck were all hurt. The bus was carrying mostly middle and high school students. Investigators say the truck was stopped and the driver was picking up trash from a home. Police say that's when the bus crashed into the back of that garbage truck.
So ultimately, we know with that one what was probably the result of that crash. Most likely following too close, or in this case, a stopped trash truck, probably definitely driver intention. Something was distracting that driver. Could be. Look in the rear as well. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now this lady's famous. Y'all probably seen this video before. She's a famous lady.
Lcboe News has a dramatic video from inside 2 school buses involved in a chain reaction crash. We had an accident that's major. 1 second, a school bus driver is cruising down the road. The next, she slams into a truck, then another school bus.
State troopers cited the driver, and now the school district is investigating. Lcboe's Luke Ducey is live in Tacoma with this story. Luke?
It happened right back there on State Route 509 on the bridge. Here is a look. The collision last Monday on State Route 509 in Tacoma is violent and scary. Screams, shattered glass, and crumpled metal state troopers. The
investigation to know she wasn't wearing her seatbelt properly? Absolutely not. When you look at the video at the very beginning, it looks like she gazes off to the left and kind of stares for a little while before she gets that bus and the gentleman in front of her. I'll talk to you a little bit about a study that Virginia Tech has recently done. They took 241 drivers, and then you see the amount of hours they logged. They used telematics data to measure what was going on. Out of that, 82 crashes, 761 near crashes, and you see that critical incidents. That is the number of incidents that could have resulted in a crash. Now, the findings of that data was nearly 80% of the crashes and 65% of the accidents or near crashes involved some form of driver inattention. Now you can see there, we got cell phones is definitely the main driver of this. You can see when you see 1.3, 3, 4, 3, 9, that is, when they looked at the data, that those people that were guilty of doing that type of action or having that type of distraction, the likelihood of a crash resulted 4 times more, 9 times more. Now when you see it red down there, reading and sending a text message, 23 times more likely to be in a crash. Is that really shocking? That probably shouldn't surprise anybody in here when you look at the data. Now, how does distractions influence us? It impairs our judgment times. We vary our speeds. We're not scanning the mirrors. Like you mentioned, we're looking at the mirror. Negatively impacts our speed management. There's all kinds of issues there. And when you think about how does that impact me on the road? Well, the speed limit in Kentucky is 70. Most people probably on the interstate say I'll probably do 75. Might bump it up to 78. When you look at 75 mile an hour on I-75, that's 110 feet per second. When you look at that, the average time to read or send text messages is 4.6 seconds. You're covering 1.7 football fields and not having any eyes on the road of what's going on behind you, to the side of you, or in front of you. So think about that, almost 1.7, almost 2 football fields. This data is kind of the data that they throw out in the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. Roughly, they think 500,000 people are injured as a result of distracted driving. I always question how they measure that. It's hard to measure, especially when you think about states that have cell phone laws. How many have been pulled over and the cop asked to see your cell phone? Probably not. So I think that's probably underreported data when you look at it, but that's kind of the data they go with. Now I'll throw this slide up here that shows, it's a color-coded slide by state, and it shows you cell phone addiction in the United States. What they categorize as cell phone addiction is drivers who are on their phone 3.2 times more than the average by state. So they're comparing some data. I don't know how they got this data. It's very interesting. I'd like to see behind the scenes. But when you look at the states that are driving the highest cell phone addicts, I would have never thought the state of Mississippi and Louisiana, New Jersey and Delaware and Massachusetts would be leading the nation across the country when it comes to cell phone addiction. But I just wanted to show you that. Anybody have any idea maybe out here in the West why they might be the lowest? No service. Absolutely. When you look at Verizon's map and AT&T's map, there's not a lot of service out there. But you can see Kentucky and Tennessee, the area around us, we fall in that 12 to 15% range of cell phone addicts. And I would be safe to tell you, probably in the data, that 15 to 24-year-old age group, boys or girls, that's what's dropping as well. I'll show you this video and talk a little about what happens at the end. That video was a really good video to demonstrate what we see day in, day out. What I want to point out, when I asked you at the beginning how many of you had young kids or driving kids, especially girls nowadays, because the difference between 16 to 19-year-old boys and girls is typically a boy will have his best friend or his girlfriend in the vehicle. Typically a girl will have, if you get them a Honda Odyssey van to drive, how many seats in that van is going to be full? Well, there's 6 every bit of it. The kicker that we're starting to see data drive fatalities is unbelted girlfriends or unbelted kids, passengers in a vehicle. So you got 4 in a vehicle, 2 of them have their seatbelt on, 2 of them do not have their seatbelt on. We're seeing head-on-head impact. Basically, those unbelted passengers are becoming projectiles on the people that's belting in, causing them to be a fatality. So that's why it's very, very important to make sure everybody's wearing their seatbelt. And if I've got a young daughter, I've already told my wife she's going to have a 1-seat Honda Civic. That's all it's going to have is 1 seat. So Just wanted to share that with you to communicate that to your children as well, especially those driving. Now, we talk about cell phones driving. Let's just look at it just walking. Happy to have Samsung. That was a result of a real life crash with an in-camera or in-cabin. And you saw what exactly happened, texting while driving. Let's talk a little about pedestrians. Now, we're starting to see this trend up, not only with school bus fleets, but just commercial fleets and personal vehicles across the country. You see the trend here. Absolutely going off. I guarantee next year it will be higher. Now, why do you think pedestrian fatalities are increasing? Okay, yeah. Pokemon Go. What have a lot of larger cities been doing with kind of to greenscape the city? What have they done? Have there been kind of a health and wellness kick where you're seeing bikes, you're seeing walking trails? That's one reason. The other reason is a little deceptive. Think about the cars we're driving now. What are everybody moving towards? Is it passenger cars or SUVs? SUVs. The difference between a passenger car and an SUV is in an SUV, if I run over somebody that's pedestrian, what's going to happen to that person? Going to be hurt in what way?
They're going to be under the vehicle.
Under the vehicle versus being thrown on top of the vehicle. That's the big difference, is the SUV spike. When typically fatality, if you get run over by a truck or an SUV, you're going to be underneath the truck or underneath the vehicle. Versus typically like a lower slope roof, like the company car I drive, you would probably get flipped on the hood or flipped over the windshield. So that's what's driving a lot of pedestrian fatalities. Now, when we look at pedestrian strikes in the school bus fleet in the state of Kentucky and nationally, I'll show you some stats in a second. But let's just think about this innocent pedestrian here that's walking here and what happens to him when somebody runs the red light. Just walking, and more than likely that gentleman is not with us anymore. That could easily have been a bus. Now, I think the next slide I have is actually going to show you pedestrian fatalities, and I will tell you what district. Two of these up here from the state of Kentucky. A couple of them are from very, very close districts as well. So let's look at some of them. I'm going to highlight some of the ones in red. Incoming insured vehicle, that's a bus, struck tree in parking lot of school. One person dead, 2 students injured. They were outside the bus. The issue with the bus is the bus lurched forward and hit 3 people. Look at the next one. Insured vehicle bus dropped student off. Student exited the bus, walked up the bank on the side of the road, and then re-entered the path of the bus again. As it began to move forward, the student was run over. This one here is from the state of Kentucky, not too far away from you guys. And then we see at the bottom, bus was stopped to deliver to a home a 5-year-old student. Bus driver dropped and stopped, opened the door. Parent was not there to meet the child, so the driver decided to continue without leaving the child at her home. She did not realize that the child had exited the bus and ran over the child. So, I mean, I hear all of the signs, and I mean, this could easily happen to anybody here, even driving our personal cars. So just keep that in mind that it does happen. Not surprising, data here, an average of 20 school-age children die in school transportations across the country. I shared that stat with you. And not surprised either here, school-age pedestrians have been killed more in the 3 a.m. to 4 p.m. range than any time of the day. When I'll show you that stats of the accidents happening in the state of Kentucky, what I didn't tell you is that when you broke that down by time range, the majority of the accidents wasn't 3 or 4. I think it was like 70%. There was been a recent study in 2018 from the state of Virginia. This was an all-encompassing state activity. They looked at 3,394 Virginia motorists that illegally passed a stopped school bus. If you multiply that by 180 days, typical length of a calendar school year, and you guys driving, that's over 600,000 passing events a year. Out of those 3,394, 187 were right side passes. I've got a video that I'll show you here later that may be shocking that just recently happened in March of April this year. We all know that that's a serious issue, and in many states, unfortunately, with the way the laws are written, there's not a lot state can do. In one study, over 10,000 vehicles illegally passed stop school buses in 58 of the 67 school districts involved in a statewide study. When you look at that, average of one illegal passing event situation per bus per day in that state. This one is recently happened.
After she saved one of her students from getting hit by a car.
The driver illegally passed the bus while the student was getting off of that bus. News Channel 9's Julia LeBlanc spoke with the bus driver about saving his life. A life-saving grab by a Norwich bus driver. The student trying to get off her bus saved at the last second from getting hit by a car, illegally passing on the shoulder.
If I hadn't grabbed him, that car would have got me instantly. You can see in the video where he stepped, the car's tires were there.
Samantha Cole says her years of training kicked in that day. Checking her mirrors has become second nature. With so many passing for buses, are on, and students are trying to get off.
This year, I've definitely multiplied. I'm getting past at least daily.
The driver in this case can't be caught, even though there's multiple cameras on Samantha's bus. Here in New York State, you can only be ticketed for passing a bus if an officer sees it firsthand. Out of all the buses in the school district, Samantha's is the only one that has the stop arm camera sitting right here below the stop sign. And even though it didn't catch the person passing her in this case, she says in the 3 years that she's tried the camera out, it's worked.
I think every bus needs it. And we've got to be able to use those cameras. We've got to be able to use the video on those cameras.
Something lawmakers are pushing for right now with a new bill called the School Bus Camera Safety Act. If that passes, drivers like this one could be held accountable.
You're putting somebody's life in jeopardy. If I mess up and a kid gets hurt, I get child endangerment for everybody on my bus. They pass my reds every day, putting children in danger. They get off with it.
Something Samantha and other drivers are hoping will change soon. In Norwich, Julia LeBlanc, News Channel 9.
I'll get to another interesting video here after this side, I believe, that's even kind of more shocking. But, you know, we all know pedestrian strikes, unloading at a bus stop is very, very challenging. You know, I mean, I know this is rocket science. It's not rocket science for you guys. It's something to live, eat, and breathe. You know, I want to think about, anybody has seen in 2015, y'all remember the Jefferson County bus crash that they did? I think I showed you guys that video last week, the last time we were here, last year, where the 5-year-old student got off the bus driver closed the door, and luckily the young elementary school kid had both straps on her backpack, and she was drugged about a quarter of a mile. I mean, I don't know if y'all remember that or not, but that's ultimately what saved her life, was that her backpack with both straps on got caught in the bus door. So think about that one from a, I mean, all this is kind of common sense, but I just want to share it. Now, this next video is quite interesting from New York City once again. You see an inpatient passenger.
School buses in Portland dropping children off at school this
Right here.
that he actually on the sidewalk, almost hitting those very young students.
All this to try to get around the bus. 2 minutes. And they were in this guy left, she came over. Because I was just bored of Cha-Cha. They're impatient, and then they're downright reckless. Buses were dropping up this morning at this Borough Park Yeshiva, where the driver of this Toyota wasn't willing to wait for them. So as the school cameras were recording, he jumped the curb and drove on the sidewalk parallel to traffic, almost mowing down several young kids before speeding off down the sidewalk. At the end of the day, as kids headed home, it's plain to see how busy it can get and just how dangerous this driver's move was. Passing a school bus may result in you committing murder. Literally, that's what it is. State Assemblyman Young to raise awareness at a time the city is cracking down pedestrian fatalities. He wants the driver of that car arrested. Well, this video speaks for itself. We could be standing there tonight crying because these children, when I saw that, I said, that could be my grandchild. I can believe the driver lives in the neighborhood because the video is so clear and shows that Toyota's license plate in 2 different angles. Cops from the nearby 6-6 precinct are fairly confident they'll catch him soon.
Now, you probably haven't seen that in London, of actual passing school buses on the side of the sidewalk. When students are being taken in and let out of school. But, you know, you think about how many of y'all done Uber or Lyft in a big city. I've actually been in a big city where the cab driver has got on the sidewalk to pass before. So hopefully you'll never see that in London, but that's definitely interesting. Now, how many of you all from rollovers and overcorrections, does anybody recognize this bus right here? In the state of Kentucky. No, it's not one of London's. No, that's the Chattanooga bus. No, this bus is actually Carrollton County. This was the bus where they think the driver had a medical issue, or maybe she lost consciousness on a windy road, ended up wrapping it around a tree. Special needs bus, so it had seatbelts on it as well. Six fatalities out of that. Now, the next video I'll show you is probably the best overcorrection video that I've seen because it shows it from multiple angles. And we'll talk about what do you think happened. This is actually the state of Wisconsin. You see the mile an hour, 56, 57 mile an hour. He's actually on a state road, 4-lane state road, so it's probably 60. Video back here of this young man's asleep. He's about to get woken up. This last video will show what happens at the front of the video, so you can kind of see what happens to the driver. Somebody already mentioned that there's weather on the road, or weather, some ice or some kind of sleet, overcorrection. That's what we think. If I go back to the very first video, you can see he almost looks like he falls asleep. Yeah. So just want to show that from an overcorrection standpoint. And I'll show you what a rollover demonstration looks like. That's at 35 mile an hour. That's up in the state of Indiana, where you can see what happens even at 35 mile an hour on that one. Now, which brings an interesting topic. You know, when we look at that overcorrection, the 800-pound gorilla question that's, I know Todd's been faced with. I done a presentation last week where the transportation director just got back from a conference. What do you guys think about seatbelts? Yay, nay?
If it's got a J in it, no.
I say yay.
You say, I'm sorry, sir?
We got a special needs over.
Let's take the special needs buses out and let's go with just the regular buses.
I say yes and no.
If you had seatbelts for, you got 80-some bikes on a bus, you couldn't put the 2 kids in.
That's right.
Where now, where we put 3.
Well,
How would you get them all out? Something really
exactly.
bad
I wanted to throw that out to you guys. Honestly, Liberty Mutual, we don't have a current stance on it. We've got access to the leading experts, and there's pros and there's cons. But I do want to share with you guys from that, and Todd may be aware of this, that the National Highway Transportation Safety Board has actually changed its stance recently on seatbelts. There's actually a law that's been promulgated by, I think, a Republican in the Northeast, where they are looking at possibly adding seatbelts, making it mandatory in the year 2022 and beyond, that all buses have to have seatbelts. And then they throw in as well that, what about old buses? Well, there's an exception clause that you retrofit old buses. Now, from a liability standpoint, who's liable? You know, but I just wanted to share with you guys that there is some changing of the guard with that, but I know the biggest excuse is, hey, what if the bus rolls over? What if it catches on fire? I've got a bus driver. How am I going to get 7 kids out? So I just wanted to share that there's it's being talked about. There's a bunch of caveats in it. We don't have a stance on it because your experts don't even know what's best. So just wanted to share that with you. And then here is a video demonstration of a bus being wrecked at 35 mile an hour, and it shows what happens to a belted passenger and a non-belted passenger. So all unbelted. And you see those 2 are belted in the front. There's probably more to come on that, again, with some of the regulations out there. What's really driving this is what happened in Chattanooga. that I showed you guys last year, that's really driving a lot of the discussion.
Didn't they give that boy in Chattanooga 30 years?
There's still some criminal activity. The only reason I know what's going on there, my wife used to work in that school district.
How'd they found him guilty?
Yeah, he has been six vehicle homicides, and each
Oh,
one of the
yeah,
civil
we did
cases
that.
could be $150 million apiece.
They've done that on purpose.
That district is probably bankrupt, definitely. Let's talk about stop arm violation solutions. You know, how many of you guys buses have stop arms? All of them. Good, good. I've gone to some districts that don't have them, believe it or not. So I want to show you this picture here. Honestly, this is a real life photo from one of my peers that has my same job. This is his children. What do we see wrong with this picture? It's not out. Now, if you had to guess the reason why it's not out, what would be your guess? Actually, my counterpart followed up with the transportation director. There was no PMI done for this bus for about 2 weeks, but the bus driver admitted that the reason they didn't do the PMI is because the stop arm was not working and they did not want to drive bus number 52 in the back lot. So, when let's just say that a car coming from this way hit these two kids and they were fatalities and then hit the bus, court of law, who's going to hold the majority of the liability on that? The school district. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I just wanted to share with you, that's another reason why I keep getting pre-trips as well. But just wanted to show that to you guys. I hope this presentation that you've taken some of this data and you can use it in your job, but also take it back to your loved ones and your families. Again, your most important stop is when you get home to be with your loved ones. I want to thank you guys for allowing me to speak. Y'all have a wonderful, blessed week. And school starts what, August 8th, first day? Y'all have a wonderful